Good morning, friends. Morning. Morning. Can you hear me? So welcome back. It is a long time after we meet. It's almost 2 weeks now since we have had the last class. So we had to start the third chapter of the first module, that is speech is golden. The first part of this chapter is about introducing ourselves. You can see that it is introducing oneself. Introducing oneself means self-introduction. So self-introduction is something that we have already learned in the first semester, and that is the first step. That's the first step in using English as a language. For example, when you start speaking about something, the best thing that you can start speaking about is about ourselves. നമ്മളെക്കുറിച്ച് പറയാനാണ് ഏറ്റവും easy. So that is the most easiest thing to do when you are speaking, that is to speak about ourselves. So that is why introducing oneself is always the first topic in any speaking activity. If you take up any speaking activity, you will see that self-introduction becomes the first part in any speaking activity. So why is it important? So the first paragraph says that for any discussion, any kind of discussion, whether it is professional or technical or even personal, when you talk to somebody, the most important thing, is to know the other person. So not only to know ourselves, it's also to know others. So we understand others, we know others. So that is how we interact with people. So understanding develops only by introducing also. So this kind of self-introduction is a very important skill that any user of language should develop. So it's a very important thing. So that is why this becomes the first part of any speaking activity, any speaking learning activity. So there are some examples also. There are also some examples which are given in the text. Let us go through those examples. There are some dialog boxes you can see here. You can see how people are introducing to each other. So whenever we have a meeting with somebody, the first thing that we do is to greet somebody. So you can, which are the different kinds of greeting, which are the different ways in which we greet others. Yes, Amrita, we can say hi. Very good, Amrita. Hello. Yes. Hi. Hi. Hello. Good morning. Or so when you refer to the time, we talk about good morning, good afternoon, good evening, etc. So there are very many different ways in which we can greet people. So greeting can be done in many ways. So greeting is also actually the first way in when you first way in connecting. Okay, connect means also rapport. Okay, so to build a connection with a rapport with people. So rapport means connection. So this is the way in which we connect with them. So you greet people. So that is how we interact. So then we talk about ourselves. Then we ask about the weather, about if somebody has traveled. If you look at this dialogue, you can see that they are also talking about the journey. In the first dialog box, you can see that uh, he says that, "Good morning, glad to meet you. I'm Kumar. Please sit down. Did you have a good journey?" So, even if you did not have a good journey, you still say that you had a good journey. Why? It is just a polite way of expressing politeness. So, it is when you are exchanging such greetings, they are called courtesies. Okay, courtesies. So, uh, courtesy എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ മര്യാദകളാണ്. That is when you ask about the weather, ask about the weather, ask about the weather, you ask about the person's health. For example, when I say, how are you? Okay, what is the response to how are you? How do you respond to this? What is the response to this? How do you respond? Very good. Glad to see. Thank you for the response. I'm fine. Thank you is the response. So even if you may not be happy, you may not be fine, but still you will say, "I'm fine. Thank you." So this is just a courtesy. It is not actually asking about your condition. You are not being asked what is your condition. You may be running out of money. You may be having an exam tomorrow. You may be in a tensed condition, but still, when somebody asks you how are you, you say, "I'm fine, thank you." So this is what is meant by a courtesy, a greeting of courtesy. So these are all part of building a relationship, or as I said earlier, building a rapport with people, building a connection with people. Okay, so if you look at the continuing conversation, there is not much, there is uh, no focus on the information. Okay, so when you interact with people, it is not so much of information, but on connection that is important. So he's talking about the car bringing him straight to this office. Okay, and about going back, how he is planning his return journey after the meeting, etc. These are all not asking more much about information. It is not so much about information as about connection. So here the most important thing is to connect with people. How you connect with people? How do you connect with people? By polite behavior. How you speak, politeness. So the politeness is a very important aspect of communication. So when you connect with people, it is a very polite way of connection. Okay, so here is a way in which a girl introduces herself. So what are the different things that we can say about ourselves when you introduce? So that is what is listed here. You can talk about your name, the place, the so that is how we always begin our introduction, talking about our name. Okay, then you can talk about the your age, your place where you come from, isn't it? Yes. Then what do you do? Okay, so these are the things that we can talk about. For example, what do you do means whether you are a student, whether you work. Okay, then you can talk about your family also. uh, what is your family doing? What is your father? What is your mother? Do you have a sister? Do you have a brother, etc.? So all these things are can be talked about when you introduce ourselves. Then you can also talk about your interests. Okay, your interests, your passions, aspirations, ambitions. What do you want to become in life? What is about your career? What career do you want to opt for? Okay, and something more personal also, your hobbies. What are the hobbies that you indulge in? All these things can be talked about in a self-introduction. Why this becomes important for us students? So self-introduction is something that everybody needs. It's not just for the students. It is something that is required for everybody. It is required for you. It is required for me also. So it doesn't make a difference whether I am a teacher or you are a student. Everybody should know how to introduce ourselves. അപ്പോൾ അത് ടീച്ചറാണെങ്കിലും വിദ്യാർത്ഥിയാണെങ്കിലും എല്ലാവർക്കും ഇത് അറിയണം എങ്ങനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ സ്വയം പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തുന്നത്. But why is it more important for students? For students, it is more important because this is the reason. Where will it come useful for you? Where is self-introduction useful for us as students? Very nice, Gladzy. Thank you for that response. It is for interviews. When you go for an interview, the first thing that they are going to ask you is to introduce yourself. So this is something which we have to learn, practice. So we have to do a lot of practice on how to introduce ourselves, because this is the first question that every interview, whatever interview you are going to, whatever job you have applied for, doesn't matter whether you have applied for a big multinational company, whether you have applied for a government job, whether you have applied for an IT job, or whether you have applied for a very small job in a very small shop, does not matter. Every job they will ask you to introduce ourselves. And the way you introduce ourselves is very important, because rest of the questions in the interview will be built on the self introduction. The whole interview, okay, the complete interview is built on what we say about ourselves. So that is the importance of self introduction, because the way you introduce yourself, it is based on this, that the interviewer is going to ask questions. So you must remember that we are the only people who have gone prepared for the interview. The interview board is not prepared. So they have not prepared for the interview. So they come for the interview and they start asking questions based on what we say. So if you are intelligent, you can drive the interview ahead. You can drive the interview ahead according to the way you speak in the self introduction. So the self introduction is something that is very important, because it is based on the self introduction that we are going to build our interview. So you can actually decide how the interviewer will ask questions, because if you say something which is actually not very good in the self introduction, that can actually affect your interview. So we have to be very careful, therefore we should prepare very well. A lot of preparation is required. We require a lot of preparation for uh, presenting in the self introduction. So this is just a sample. So when you see this student introducing herself, so this is just a sample. You can add many other things. For example, I said that you can talk about your talents. Okay, so your skills, your strengths. Okay, so all these things you can talk about. So this is just a sample, it's a basic thing. You can add many things to it, and you can also remove something. So sometimes you need not mention in an interview what is your favorite color is not required in an interview. So there are some things which you can say in an interview, which things you need not say in an interview. For example, if you are going for a job interview, it does not require details of the family, because that is not what they are focusing on, because they are focusing on what we have learned, what are our skills, what are your strengths, etc. So a job interview does not need the details of the family, because we are not there for a marriage interview. If it was a marriage interview, for example, if you are going to get married, then they will be more interested in your family details. We are not going for a marriage interview. We are going for a job interview. So for a job interview, doesn't need such details. So you can just mention your parents' name and profession and all if you want, but they will not ask you too much questions on that. So you can just make a passing mention. Okay, that is all that is required of the family. Okay, passing mention എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ it is just a very brief mention of the family. That is all that you need to talk about when you speak about the family in a job interview. So this is something which everybody should practice doing. And some here in this section, we will also learn many expressions of social function. Okay, expressions of social function, because language is used in different situations, different purposes. So, sir, there are some expressions of social function depending on the situation. For example, if you want to uh, request somebody something, that is a kind of social function. Okay, and it has three different things. Okay, when you're talking about request, so when you talk about request, it has three different things. One is making a request. Okay, accepting a request, and sometimes denying. Okay, three aspects to request: making a request, accepting a request, and denying a request. So all these three aspects are there for request. So that is one social function. Requesting is a social function, and that requires certain words to use. We use certain words when we are making a request. This is something which we have in every language. ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ മാത്രമല്ല, മലയാളത്തിലാണെങ്കിലും നമ്മൾ ആവശ്യപ്പെടുകയും അപേക്ഷിക്കുകയും രണ്ടും രണ്ടാണ് അല്ലെ. ആവശ്യപ്പെടുന്നത് ഒന്നാണ്, അപേക്ഷിക്കുന്നത് വേറൊന്നാണ്. സോ there is a certain change in words which happens when you are making a request. And when you accept a request, there are certain structures which we use when we accept a request. And when somebody makes a request, it is not possible to accept all the request. ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരാൾ നമ്മളോട് എന്തെങ്കിലും റിക്വസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, റിക്വസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്തല്ലോ എന്ന് വിചാരിച്ച് നമുക്ക് എല്ലാം ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമോ? ഒരാളിനോട് 10 രൂപ ചോദിച്ചു, ഐ ക്യാൻ ഗിവ് ദം 10 രൂപ. 1 second. Okay, so we were talking about the making, accepting, and denying request. So it is not possible to accept every request that somebody makes. Suppose somebody asks you to give you 10 rupees, then give them 10 rupees. It's not a very big amount, so you give them 10 rupees. But suppose they come and ask you, can you give me 1,000 rupees? You may not have the money with you at the moment, so you cannot say, oh, he has made a very polite request, how will I deny it? So you cannot do that. So then you deny. You just do not just say no. See, how do you say no politely? Will you say, can you say this? Oh, expressions of politeness. Can I say no, I will not? Is it possible? I say this, no, I will not give. No, Rama. Very nice. Yeah, thank you, Gladsy. You have to apologize. So when you deny, you have to say, yes, Mayusha, that is right. Yes, Gladsy. You can say, I am sorry, or sorry, I can't, or I'm sorry, I don't have the money with me. Or there are some other expressions also which we learned in the previous years. As for example, I'm afraid I don't have so much money. Here, look at this expression, I am afraid I don't have so much money. Here, afraid does not mean fear. Here, afraid means sorry. ഇവിടെ afraid എന്നുള്ളതിന് fear എന്ന അർത്ഥമേ അല്ല. Here, afraid means sorry. So there are many expressions which we can use to deny also. So like we have many expressions to accept, there are also many expressions to deny a request. So look at this, these expressions of politeness. So very politely requesting, if it is not inconvenient, can you help me with this lesson? If it is not inconvenient, can you help me with this lesson? If you don't mind, if you don't mind, will you please put the phone in silent mode? Okay, so it is a very polite way of requesting, a polite way of making a request. And see another expression. So this is requesting is one social function. Another expression is agreeing and disagreeing. See, this is another social function. So we are talking about different social situations. So when somebody says, "I completely agree with you," uh, or "I'm fully in agreement with you," and you can here also you can ask for agreement. You can agree and also disagree. So there are three aspects. Like we had three aspects for requesting. Here also there are three aspects: asking for agreement, then agreeing and disagreeing. So all these things when we do, the most important thing that we have to remember is that it has to be polite. Even when you disagree, especially in disagreement, agreement there may not be any need for politeness. നമ്മളൊരാൾ പറയുന്നതിനോട് എഗ്രി ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ പൊളൈറ്റ്നെസ് ചിലപ്പോൾ അത്ര ശ്രദ്ധിക്കില്ല. പക്ഷേ നമ്മൾ ഡിസഗ്രി ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ ക്യാൻ ഐ സേ ദിസ് ഇങ്ങനെ പറയാം, ആരെങ്കിലും എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയുമ്പോൾ ക്യാൻ ഐ സേ ദിസ്, നോ യു ആർ റോങ്, എന്ന് പറയാമോ, ഇതൊക്കെ പറയാമോ? Can I say no, I disagree? No. Yes, that is right. We cannot say these things. So these are not good because they are impolite. Means they are rude language. So we should not use such impolite or rude language when we interact with others. So when I disagree, uh, again you can be very polite and say, ഡിസഗ്രി എന്നുള്ള വാക്കില്ലാതെ തന്നെ നമുക്ക് ഡിസഗ്രി ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. I can say, I am sorry, I have a, you can give some comment. I'm sorry, I have a different. Here it shows that I disagree, but the person who listens to what I say is not offended. So this is something we have to be very careful with when we use language. Our language should not hurt others. നമ്മൾ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന ഭാഷ മറ്റുള്ളവരെ മുറിപ്പെടുത്തുന്നത് ആകരുത്. നമുക്ക് എത്രത്തോളം ആരോടെങ്കിലും ദേഷ്യമുണ്ടെങ്കിലും, സോ ദിസ് ഈസ് സംതിങ് വിച്ച് യു ക്യാൻ അപ്ലൈ എനിവെയർ. ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് ഉപയോഗിക്കുമ്പോൾ മാത്രമല്ല, എപ്പോഴും നമ്മൾ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന ഭാഷ, അത് നമ്മൾ വീട്ടിലായാലും പുറത്തായാലും മറ്റുള്ളവരെ മുറിപ്പെടുത്തുന്ന രീതിയിലുള്ള ഭാഷ ഉപയോഗിക്കാതിരിക്കുക, ഒരിക്കലും ഉപയോഗിക്കരുത്, വാട്ട് എവർ സിറ്റുവേഷൻ. സോ ദാറ്റ് ആക്ച്വലി എൻഹാൻസസ് യുവർ പേഴ്സണാലിറ്റി. Good language. Okay, there is a very famous saying. I think which you should all take down. പേനയും ബുക്കും ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇത് എഴുതിയെടുക്കുന്നത് നല്ലതാണ്. Okay. So there is a very famous saying by a great saint. This is a very famous saying. What is the meaning of this? Can somebody give the essence of this? What is the meaning? What does it mean? It's a very famous, very important saying which should guide our life. What's the meaning? ഇതിന്റെ അർത്ഥം എന്താണ്? This saying is talking about how we should use language. What is the effect of using language? What is it? What is the meaning? What is the meaning of cultured tongue? Daily tongue cleaner use ചെയ്യണമെന്നാണോ എൻ്റെ അർത്ഥം? Very good, Gladzy. It is about politeness. It is about politeness. Yes, Gladzy. Polite words. Very good in using our language. That is, you should not use not harsh. Okay, you should not use harsh words, rough words, polite words. Only use polite words. Whoever you are talking, even to people who use very harsh words with us, we should not talk to them in the same coin. We should use only good words with others. So that is what is meant by a cultured tongue. So that is why it is said that speech is golden here, because otherwise it is used to say that silence is golden. Here, speech, when does speech become golden? Speech becomes golden when it is filled with politeness. That is why it is said that a cultured tongue rules the kingdom of the heart. Which heart? The heart of others. Okay, when you speak in a very polite way with others, doesn't matter whether we are people who are talking to you are bigger to you in age or position, whoever we interact with, everybody we should use very polite language. Then what happens? Then we will live in their hearts. They will remember us in their heart. If you are using polite language, people will always keep us in their hearts. That's why it says that a cultured tongue rules the kingdom of the heart. So here, so that is what this social encounter എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് പറയുന്നത്. So that is why this says that it should be filled with pride. Tinged means it should be that flavor should be there. Tinge is that flavor, taste. So everything in every encounter is meeting. So when we meet people, the flavor politeness should be there in our language. We should interact in a manner of politeness. So even when we are asking some questions, it should not be like a schoolmaster asking questions, okay, or like a policeman asking questions. Even when we ask a question, there should be a lot of politeness in the way we ask a question. So that is how our tongue becomes cultured. That is how we identify ourselves as educated. So if you are educated, that education should reflect in the way we speak, in the way we interact with others, in the way we behave with others. So even inside the house, and that is where it is tested for the first time. How do we behave with our parents? How do we behave with our siblings inside the house? Are we very rude to them, or are we very kind to them? So if you are rude, we have to change. We have to change. Oh, I have been rude till yesterday. How can I suddenly become nice? We can. We can change. So we can speak kind words. Never use any harsh words with others. What happens because of that? Because of that, the whole atmosphere in the house changes. You will feel the change in the atmosphere. There will be lightness in the atmosphere. They will also feel happy. Oh, this girl is speaking so nicely to me. So this kind of culture in language is something that actually enhances our personality. Enhances means makes better. Our personality is improved if we use a cultured language. So the most important thing is to use such expressions of politeness. Okay. So how can you ask a question? So instead of asking, "Will you help me?" Okay. So it is there is not any politeness in this question. When I ask, "Will you help me?" Is there any politeness in it? There is no politeness. So, but when I ask, "Would you mind helping me?" Okay, look at this. So when I ask this question, it is the same meaning. The meaning is not different. There is no difference in meaning. Is there any difference in meaning between these two questions? Will you help me and would you mind helping me? There is no difference in meaning. The difference is in the attitude. Okay. The attitude is very important. If you have a good attitude, a polite attitude, then people will like to interact with you. So, polite language is something that we have to always focus on. We have to focus on polite language. So, this is very important. Instead of asking, will you help me? We can always ask, would you mind helping me? Would you mind helping me? So there are many other expressions also which are given that depending on the kind of situation. So suppose you want to, you are calling somebody and you want to interact with somebody over the phone. Well, you can ask, may I speak to? Or the expression which is given here, could I speak to? Instead of just asking. So impolite way is connect me to. That is impolite way. But when I say in a polite way, I should say, could I speak to Mr. So and so? So polite expressions are something that every user of language is not just for students or uh, job aspirants. Every user of language should train themselves. They should teach themselves to use such polite usages. അതെല്ലാ ഭാഷകളിലും ഉണ്ട് അത്. അത്തരം പ്രയോഗങ്ങൾ നമ്മൾ പഠിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ we can have a better image of ourselves. So image is something also related to personality. We can build a better image of ourselves in the hearts of others. So such expressions are there in different social functions. So let us see what are the other social functions that we can come across. For example, here the expressions that you used are these question forms. But there are some other situations like giving suggestions or making a request or offering any help or inviting somebody. Okay, suppose you have a program, uh, you want to watch a movie, you invite somebody to come with you for the movie. That is also a way of connecting with someone. So you can invite others. Okay, then you can ask permission. Suppose you want to use somebody else's objects, you cannot just take their object and use. You have to ask their permission. So when we ask for their permission, that is to be done in a very polite manner. So that is the next part we will be dealing with on how we can uh, make such different requests. So the questions can be the all these are in the form of a question. You can see that all these have question marks at the end. എല്ലാത്തിനും question mark ഉണ്ട് എൻഡിൽ, but they are all not questions. Everything has a different social function. If you look at that, it has all, they are all in the form of a question, but they are not all questions. They are all different social functions. What is it? Social functions. See, they are not questions. They are in the form of a question. So the structure is that of a question. Structure a question, but they are not questions. Structure is that of a question, but they are not questions. They are actually different social functions. What are the different social functions? The first one is a suggestion. The second one is a request. The third one is offering help, giving help to somebody. Then you are inviting somebody. Like I said, if you want to invite somebody to come with you for a movie, you can invite them. Then asking for permission. So just because we see a question mark, we should not immediately come to the conclusion that it is a question. Seeing a question mark is not uh, going to uh, make you think that it is a question. You should not think that it is a question just by seeing a question mark. So the intent, the aim of this statement is to suggest, it could be to request, it could be offering help, it could be inviting somebody, or it could be asking for permission. So you have to read the whole sentence to understand what social function it represents. So that is the, so this is what when it is mentioned that functions, here you can see that functions are mentioned. So they are all different functions, different social functions, such as suggestion, requesting, seeking permission, offering help, inviting, etc. Okay. Okay, now let us look at this uh, some some interesting uh, questions. So could you pass the salt, please? It is not enough to say yes or no. There is some action which is expected. So if I ask you, could you pass the salt, please? It is not asking for an yes or no. They expect you to pass the salt. So it is not an yes or no question. It is actually a social function of request. കേട്ട ഒരു yes or no question പോലെ തോന്നും, but it is actually a request, a polite way of asking something. It could even be a command, but a very polite way of commanding. Could you pass the salt, please? See, the structure is that of a question, but it is not a question. And you can see that there are uh, three verbs here. Okay, two verbs here. One is pass, and the other is could. Okay, so these kind of verbs are called auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary means what? Auxiliary means the verb which is in addition to. Auxiliary, the actual meaning is helping. Auxiliary verb means helping verb. Auxiliary verb means helping verb, and could is considered as an auxiliary verb. Passes the main verb here. Okay. Similarly, in the second sentence, may I have some tea? Okay. So here, have is the main verb, and may is the auxiliary verb. So we will find that there will be more than one verbs when the question is it is when it is a polite request, it becomes larger. There are more verbs which are added. Auxiliary verbs are added. If it is an order, if it is an impolite statement, it will be just pass the salt. അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ ഒറ്റ verb ഉണ്ടാവുള്ളൂ. So, so the passing here, it is just an order. There is no command, and there is no politeness here. It is just a command. Pass the salt എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ അത് വെറും ഒരു കമാൻഡ് മാത്രമാണ്. You are not actually using any polite language. So the polite language is something you have to use. The sentence may become long, but doesn't matter. It doesn't matter even if the sentence becomes long. So can I say pass the salt? Pass the salt എന്ന് എനിക്ക് പറയാമോ? Could you pass the salt, please? എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഭയങ്കര ലോങ് ആണ്. So can I say pass the salt? No. Yes, Glachi, thank you. So we cannot say that because politeness is the essence of language. Politeness is the essence of language. It is impolite. Yes, Mayusha, it is impolite. So politeness is the essence of language. We have to use polite language always in all situations. So that's why we say, instead of saying give me tea, the meaning is the same. May I have some tea എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാലും give me tea എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാലും it is the same. But the polite way of making asking for something is may I have some tea. So you have an additional verb. May is an additional verb. May is an auxiliary that is added there. But that auxiliary, what it makes, it makes the sentence very polite. So you can begin a sentence with auxiliary verbs, but main verbs, most of the main verbs cannot begin a question. For example, you can begin a question with may, could, etc. But you cannot begin a question with by, carry, etc. So the auxiliaries should be added. Uh, do you carry? Did you buy, etc. Some auxiliaries will be there. So that is something which we have to remember regarding questions also. When you begin a question, that is the next part. It says that a question cannot begin with verbs like buy, carry, etc. Auxiliaries should be there. Auxiliaries, as I said earlier, they are helping verbs. So the helping verbs are required when we make some question like with verbs like buy, carry, etc. For example, I cannot say liked the flowers, so I will have to add do. Do you like the flowers, or did you like the flowers? This is another example. Did you like the movie? Okay, so these are some examples of asking questions in a very polite manner. Does the child feel cold, etc. Another social function is making complaint. How to make a complaint? Asking, what is a complaint? You have some problem and you talk about it to somebody else. That is a complaint. So complaint can also be in a very polite manner. നമ്മൾ കംപ്ലൈൻറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ നമ്മൾ we are not shouting. Usually a person who is not cultured, and we should remember that culture does not come with education also. So there are some educated people who may behave in a very uncultured manner. Okay, so education does not guarantee culture. Culture is something different. ഒരു എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനും ഇല്ലാത്ത ആൾക്കാർ വളരെ കൾച്ചേർഡ് ആയിട്ട് ചിലപ്പോൾ ബിഹേവ്. So that is all something which is related to our personality. So if you have a good personality, if you want to have a good personality, we have to develop a cultured tongue. So this is something which we should always remember. A cultured tongue എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ we have to use polite words. See, even when you are making a complaint is not something very happy. നമ്മൾ സന്തോഷിച്ച് പറയുന്ന കാര്യമേ അല്ല. So even when you are making a complaint, it has to be done in a very polite manner. So we may think that, oh, is there only one way of making a complaint? No, there are many polite ways. There are scores of polite ways in which we can make a complaint. So look at the different examples which are given there. You can say, I am sorry to bring to your notice that the water supply is stopped for the past 1 week. Suppose you are not getting water in your house for the past 1 week. How do you make a complaint? You tell them that I'm very sorry to bring to your notice that the water supply to our house has been blocked for the past 1 week. So as I said earlier, here we have in the second example, you can see that word sorry there. So here, first example, you have the example sorry, but in the second example, you see the word afraid. But here, afraid has nothing to do with fear. പേടിയുമായിട്ട് യാതൊരു ബന്ധവുമില്ല. Then what does it mean? So in such situations, I am afraid here means എക്സാക്ട്ലി മയൂഷ, ഇറ്റ് മീൻസ് സോറി. സോറി എന്ന് തന്നെയാണ് അതിൻ്റെ അർത്ഥം. അപ്പോൾ അവിടെ ചില സന്ദർഭങ്ങൾ, അപ്പോൾ വാക്കുകളുടെ മീനിങ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് വാക്കുകൾക്ക് പെർമനൻ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ഫിക്സ്ഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു മീനിങ് ഇല്ല. വേർഡ്സ് ഡു നോട്ട് ഹാവ് എനി ഫിക്സ്ഡ് മീനിങ്സ്. വേർഡ്സ്, ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലൊരു ഫേമസ് സേയിങ് ഉണ്ട്, വാക്കുകൾക്ക് ഫിക്സ്ഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു മീനിങ് ഇല്ല. ദെൻ what does it mean? The meaning of a word is its use. Wittgenstein എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു ഫേമസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ളൊരു റൈറ്റർ ഉണ്ട്. These are his words. He said that the meaning of a word is its use എന്നാണ്. ലാസ്റ്റ് ജി ഇല്ല അതിന്, വിറ്റ്ഗൻസ്റ്റൈൻ എന്നാണ്. So he says that the meaning of a word is its use. So here afraid എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു, പക്ഷെ അവിടെ ഫിയറുമായിട്ട് യാതൊരു ബന്ധമില്ല. ഇറ്റ് മീൻസ് സോറി. So there are so many different ways in which you can make the same complaint. Different word structures. But it will all sound very polite. So look at the very strong complaint. If we look at this last one, which is mentioned here, second last one here, a strong way in which he complains, but it doesn't sound rude. It is very polite. Is making the complaint in a very polite manner. He's making a complaint, but that complaint does not sound any rude. So it is a very strong. He says, "I wish to complain in the strongest terms about the the supply of water blocked into my house for the past 1 week." See, it is a very strong way of making a complaint, but it is a very polite way. So we can learn these structures. If not all structures, let us learn some of these structures so that we make our language much more polite. So politeness is actually the key to becoming a good user of language. So when somebody makes a complaint, what is the response? ഇപ്പം നമ്മളോട് ആരെങ്കിലും ഒരു കംപ്ലൈൻറ്റ് പറഞ്ഞു, അപ്പം നമ്മൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യും? ആദ്യം നമ്മളോട് ആരെങ്കിലും നമ്മളെക്കുറിച്ച് കംപ്ലൈൻറ്റ് പറഞ്ഞു, നമ്മൾ ആദ്യം എന്ത് ചെയ്യണം? ഞാനങ്ങനെയൊന്നും ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല എന്ന് പറയണോ ചെയ്യുക, അതോ നമ്മൾ ഷുഡ് ബി വീണ്ടും നമ്മളോട് ആരെങ്കിലും കുറ്റം പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യും? ഞാൻ അങ്ങനെയൊന്നുമല്ല, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് തോന്നണതാണെന്ന് പറയുമോ, അതോ നമ്മൾ ടു ബി റെസ്പോണ്ട് ഇൻ എ പൊളൈറ്റ് മാനർ? Should we respond in a polite manner? Yeah. So when somebody complains, the first thing that we should do is to offer apology. Okay. This is something that we should do. So whether we have actually done the wrong or not, whether the water supply was actually stopped or not, the first thing that you should do when somebody makes a complaint is to apologize. Apology. Offer an apology. That is to say sorry. So that is something that we should offer when somebody makes a complaint. You offer your apology, say sorry to them, and then uh, uh, do what you can to help the person. So how to offer apology, how to respond? So the apology is the response to a complaint. So this is another social function. If complaint is one social function, apology is another social function. So what are the different ways in which we can offer apologies? What are the different ways in which we can accept an apology? How can we seek permission? And how can we refuse permission? How can we talk to others? How can we interact with others? All these things we will discuss in the next class. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining. Have a nice day. Goodbye.